Ironically, the only one related to North America who clapped anything during the semi-finals there. Not bad, maybe keep that in, editor. Right, so let's start the show. This is going to be an episode of Thorin and Loco versus Worlds, your favourite show to hate. But here's the thing, as long as them views stay up, as long as the ad revenue comes in, I don't really care if you hate it all. I mean, make a fucking anti-fan club for me if you want. Come and boo and hold up signs saying I suck. Doesn't really matter, especially because... for anyone who wants a little spoiler, I don't know if you saw this on Reddit, Loco, but someone actually made a thread where, I did that like spite prediction against Cloud9 where I was like saying about how they're going to get shit. It literally happened. It was exactly like that. It was, except for the part that obviously like Reaper didn't like burn his green card and kick Sneaky into a trash can, but he may as well have. That was a pretty good sort of metaphor for what did in fact happen. So obviously, this is the episode where we make everyone really upset by reviewing the semi-finals. So that's right. If you're from Europe, it's going to be a bad time in terms of G2. If you're from North America, if you think that you got the last laugh by trying to clap back at me on Reddit about Cloud9 beating a freak of freaks, buckle the fuck in, sunshine, and get your airbag ready because you're going to need it for this one. So, Loco, let's start off. And reference that, as usual, this show is brought to you not just by a bunch of people who give a lot of opinions, don't know anything about League of Legends. It's also brought to you by GG Esports, which is a site where they have odds for all the games. They have the VODs of the games embedded. You can play there for play coins, which can later on allow you to win gems. Gems can be exchanged for things that you like, such as skins, riot points, all that stuff. So let me start out by asking you this, Loco. Obviously, we're going to talk about these semis. So what actually were the odds going into the semis on GG Esports, so we can have a sense of who they thought were going to win these matches? Okay. Not who delusional fans on Reddit thought were going to win.
All right, let me go check the odds real quick. I actually am not perfectly familiar with how to check odds for past matches, so maybe ask Veteren a question while I look for the match odds.
Okay, right, Veteren. I know we actually did do predictions for these matches.
Yes.
So let me ask you this initially. Right,
Okay.
You did say that you picked G2 on the basis that you didn't know that much about IG, and obviously you're not like an LPL expert, etc.
Yeah.
Were you, aside from the result, ignoring like the number of games?
Sure.
Was it just a totally different G2 turned up than the one you thought?
I mean, maybe in terms of what their priorities were on Red Side. Like, I was really encouraged when I found out they were picking Red Side, and even more encouraged when I found out that IG were picking Blue Side, except that the other prediction that was made by the two Chinese experts, that they were actually able to flex picks like the Jace. They never actually brought out the Fiora, but that was always kind of there. Did really come into fold for them, but G2 were permanently blind picking their solo laners at the same time, and it seemed really opposite of how I feel drafts should be done on Red Side anyway. So the advantage that I perceived they would get from going Red Side literally every single game in the series was negated. So in that sense, I was surprised by an aspect of G2. It was overall the G2 I expected to come into the World Championships, I guess. Like, no one really expected to get far. I certainly didn't expect them to get far. They didn't actually get Tom Kench. Well, they could have gotten Tom Kench every game, but they opted to choose Alistair for two of them for some reason. And I did expect that they would falter with that, but I certainly expected better things from them in terms of drafts. I really don't know what happened there, because the day after that, on the Cloud9 Fnatic series, everybody was picking on Red Side exactly as I think you should do in this tournament. So, and they could only be scrimming one of those two teams, you know?
Sure.
So maybe they just had success against them in other things. I have heard, though I can't like fully confirm this right now, but I have heard that G2 were actually scrimming IG for the majority of the tournament.
Right.
So IG probably were able to come in with a good game plan.
Yes.
Both teams obviously were able to come in with a strong game plan versus the other one. But certain champion priorities that G2 would have shown those scrims definitely got abused here. I wouldn't have expected anyone
That's always a factor, which is why it's very good to know who does scrim who. That unfortunately a fan can never know from outside, or even an analyst who just knows that. Because externally, you're just looking, right, here's the like win conditions of one team, the strengths, how would they match up. But as soon as you've scrimmed the team enough times, it's going to just be like a game within a game of what you did in those scrims and then what you think they're going to change. And so you change something. And so, it's almost, you just go so far down the rabbit hole on that one, like you can't ever really know what's going to happen.
But then also the team with the most options is going to have the biggest advantage when all information is equal. And IG were definitely the team coming in with the most options, because as everybody has talked about since the start of this G2 run, G2's options are very limited when it comes to the bottom half of their map.
Okay. Right. Did you find them, Loco?
Yes, I've So I couldn't go back and find the odds, but I could find the odds for the games I bet on. So for G2 IG, the odds for IG winning were 1.3. So if you bet 100 coins, you were only going to get 30 extra back.
Yes.
So the odds were very, very much in favor for IG winning the best of 5. And honestly, like, I will say, like, League of Legends at top tier level is usually like incredibly easy to predict, like incredibly easy. I think if you always bet on the favorites win so many.
Well, especially in best of 5 series. Like in best of 1's a bit different, sure, but I agree. In best of 5 series, it's overwhelming. That's why Koreans won every best of 5 except one at like Worlds in the past.
Yeah, so it was like super shocking this World because there were so many upsets, like G2 beating RNG. I don't think the KTIG can really be considered the upset anymore. C9 beating Africa, like these were like very like upsetty. So when I went to like G2 IG, like the odds seemed like, like it's very, very unfavorable for IG. Like it's only 1.3. Like, does the site really think IG is that much of a favorite?
And for G2, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, and the games played out that way, like where IG were just massive favorites and it was just a smash. It seemed like at that point, like I was like second guessing myself. Like I was like, damn, was G2 beating RNG a fluke even? Like it was that much of a smash for me, at least.
Okay. I've got a question for you, Veteren, which I think is a good way to start this topic off. Yeah. So this was, if you remember, the way the semis played out, everyone was like, oh, it's the battle of the solo laners. But that was more this particular semi. It was more G2 and IG. If you look at the strength, obviously, the 2 Korean solo laners of IG are like MVP candidates of the tournament. G2's 2 solo laners had looked very strong. Like, did it even end up playing out like that in the matches, in your opinion?
Well, I would definitely refute the idea that it wasn't the tale of the solo laners both times. The thing is that RNG never accepted that it would be the tale of the solo laners, and therefore G2 solo laners shined. And then here, IG solo laners shined because they came into the game actually preparing to play that way, which is the correct way to play. And it's almost a fluke because these guys have the Shy and Rookie that they, out of all of the LPL teams, are the ones that are playing the proper meta playstyle that this patch requires you to be playing. RNG simply weren't playing that. It wasn't a fluke by any means that G2 beat RNG. It was, you could only say it was a fluke insofar as RNG did not correctly identify the meta, but EDG also weren't correctly identifying the meta. Fnatic and G2 did, and they were able to beat them by playing the actual game of League of Legends that you should be playing right now. But IG, on the other hand, played that same game. They played them with advantages from draft, and they just played them better than G2. But if you're not playing the game in the first place, you're not going to play it better. So I still think RNG should lose.
You talk about identifying the meta, and I really want to ask you this question. Do you think the teams that are like high up here, like we'll even mention G2, the 4 teams at semis, G2, C9, IG, and Fnatic, do you think they correctly identified the meta, or this is the natural meta they would have ended up with, regardless, even if it was bot style? Do you?
Cloud9 didn't identify the meta correctly, I think. I think that versus Africa, you actually saw most of the series play out on bot side. And LICORICE did end up with a lot of strong top lane matchups, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the jungle pathing was actually tending towards top side every single one of those games. You actually did see the majority of that series play out in the bot lane, and the only time where it looked like Africa should be winning was when they started winning the bot side matchup with Varus, for example. They were actually starting to pick for that type of early skirmishes around bot lane. Fnatic, on the other hand, if you want to see if Fnatic have actually correctly identified the meta you played around solo lane, let's look at what their priority is. Bwipo, every single game, not SOAS. Everyone knows Fnatic's philosophy around playing Bwipo. They're going to play him if they believe that it is a carry top meta, and it is indeed a carry top, carry mid meta. So they are subbing in Bwipo every game. They've definitely identified it, and G2 are only here because they identified this aspect of the meta. And I will say, because I mentioned this on a really early episode of Narrative Wait before Worlds, that like G2 were already coming in with a point where they had correctly identified they need to play around Wander on Camille and play 4-1 around that, and they need Tom, they need Heimerdinger, because these are the only champions where their bot lane will not int you the game in the mid section. But still, that meant that they correctly identified the meta playstyle in the European playoffs, and I was not actually aware of this at the time, but Europe was actually probably the only region that was playing this solo lane really heavy centric meta at the time. China was still playing really hard.
Final then, right?
Yeah. It makes sense. No, it makes sense that Schalke got beaten by G2 in this. If you put Schalke into this World Championship, they don't do as well as G2. because the playstyle that they ended up doing was literally Visage Archer, you're on a tank, bot lane, you're on Ezreal Braum every single game, which is a good thing, by the way, but we're putting everything on rotating towards mid lane. And there was a risk coming into this tournament that Fnatic were going to do a similar thing, but they didn't, because Fnatic have always done this thing where they would just play through bot and transfer that pressure to mid, and everything is on caps. They have tended away from that over the course of Worlds, and it looks very strong for them coming into the World Finals as a result. They evolved into adapting towards this meta. Schalke weren't able to, G2 were by default playing this style because it's the only way that they can. They have one perks.
All right, let me talk now. So
Sure.
I give you full credit for Fnatic. I think Fnatic had the flexibility to be a bottom-oriented team if they needed to be, or a mid-oriented team if they need to be, and they still are somewhat of a mid-oriented team, but they consciously made the decision, hey, this World is very much about top lane and mid lane and jungle, like solo lane and jungle being strong, so we're going to put in Whippo and we're going to play a lot to this, and bot lane, if you guys ever get a lead, just send Hylissang mid and get back to mid lane. So they correctly identified the meta, and they had tools to play a lot of different styles. C9 will disagree on, but we can move on to a really important topic, G2. I don't think G2 picked this meta and they were like, we should play this way. G2 were forced into playing this way because it was the only way they can succeed, and they got lucky that the only way they could succeed was in line with the meta. Say the meta completely changed and like Kog'Maw and Twitch were really strong, G2 would fail. They could not play that meta. The meta they can play, the two strong solo laners with utility bot and like bot being resource free, was the only way their team could play, and it's
basically how they already did play anyway. Loco, like that's the thing about them as a team.
Yeah, no, that's Loco's point though, I think.
Yeah, my point is like Fnatic correctly analyzed the meta and they adapted to it. For G2, they luckily just ended up like.
I would say the same for IG though.
So your question is less of like, do the teams here play the current meta? It's more like, do I think that they sat down and figured out this is the optimal way, or did they just luck into it? Because I can never say that. But I could never say then for G2 if they actually understood the meta has to be this way, or if they lucked into it, because they do have to play this, as you say.
Yeah, they have to. That's their only option.
Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't actually identify this as the proper way to play. That doesn't necessarily mean that. That just means that you will never give G2 the benefit of the doubt. So I'm not going to criticize them like that. I do believe that they are only got to the semifinals because they are playing the actual way the game should be played right now. Something odd with RNG.
Gaia and Kai'Sa in play-ins, if I remember, in like the play-in portion, and they were like losing to Supermassive. Like they could not play other styles. Like when they were playing other styles, they were losing to wildcard teams. So
I mean, I actually think that you can play with Kai'Sa bot lane if you have Tahm Kench and still play really solo lane centric, but only if you have Tahm Kench. I think this is outside of just G2, by the way, because I obviously have a Heimer Tahm meme with G2. But I think you can make that work. You can potentially make that work with Alistar, but less easily. But with Tahm Kench, you can definitely make a Kai'Sa bot lane playstyle work, and then just ignore that, call it a dead lane, and then play really heavy towards top. But you're still going to be hard pressured, and you give the enemy way more workarounds than otherwise. I think if you were to do this versus RNG, for example, they would lose. They would definitely lose if they did this against RNG.
Okay. I have a question for you here, Veteran. So one of the aspects that I know people like you who hoped G2 was going to be able to win, and people who actually thought they had a chance in terms of the solo lane battle, a lot of it rested on Wonder, because he looked like one of the best players in the tournament, right? Wasn't this semi a bit underwhelming from him?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't exactly make it easy for him in draft. Like, I'm actually bringing it up right now. And so the first game, enemy first picks Akali, he goes Swain. That's actually fine, though not necessarily in the scaling department, but Swain does have a lot of options decently early on. The second game, okay, but the problem is that this game, their bot lane does not opt into the Tahm or Heimerdinger like they should. They don't have the Heimerdinger option, but Tahm is up and they opt straight into the Alistar, and it's the fastest Braum Lucian rotation possible from IG, and then their bot lane goes Sivir into it. So they've successfully blinded a losing bot lane matchup, and then they don't secure like a strong winning solo lane matchup either. So like this draft is really strange from them. And then
especially because obviously everyone was saying going in, like, if Tahm Kench isn't banned, then Woody will obviously pick it. But maybe this is again where the scrim angle comes in, and they just knew somehow maybe IG's going to draft to play around it or something.
The second game he did, but it's a blind Aatrox from G2, and IG are then able to blind LeBlanc and go straight into Jace counterpick on the Aatrox because G2 immediately reveal their second solo laner in Irelia, and Jace is going to have a fine time into both of those. Jace is actually a really good pick right now if you're able to flex it, and they do this so that they can last pick Gragas, which makes no sense to me. Like the enemy jungle pick has already been done. You are way better off going for your jungle rotation here and then going for a strong counter pick on your second solo lane. Like, you can just flex the Aatrox all the way through the draft, but they opt not to, and I don't understand why, and Wanda just gets punished for this. And the last game they blind Irelia, and the Irelia has to go top. So they've done the Irelia into LeBlanc first pick, but that's really not a good matchup for Irelia in the mid lane, so you automatically know it's going top lane. Now IG just have counterpick again on blue side, and they go Aatrox. By the way, Aatrox makes it all the way past second bans with this setup. So Wanda, what you can definitely say Wanda didn't have like the best tournament, the best semis of his life, but he definitely wasn't set up to succeed in these drafts. It's really strange.
But also, I think Aatrox lost a lot of value. It was like, oh, they pick Aatrox. What are we gonna do? We can't beat Aatrox in lane, and we're gonna lose to Aatrox in team fights. Like, Aatrox so good, like first pick on blue side or a must ban. And then teams are like, actually, if you pick range champions like Ryze into Aatrox, or what's the other common one, like Jace into Aatrox, or if Aatrox ever goes mid, just pick any range champion. And then you can make Aatrox be down like 20 CS, 15 CS, and control the lane and be in priority and just win the game early. And Aatrox mid game doesn't even matter that much. Like, I think Aatrox as a pick from the start of the tournament up to now lost a lot of value, and people learned how to play with Aatrox a lot more, play with and against.
Yeah,
I mean, as you said, the other one was Victor, right?
Yeah, Victor, but Victor's banned every game in the G2 series.
So that was why they thought they could blind it then?
No, the IG picked the Aatrox into a top lane Irelia.
No, I meant on the other game when they blinded Aatrox. They assumed
when they
because the
blinded
Victor was banned, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, potentially, but then you haven't done that much research into IG if you don't think that Jace, Fiora, etc. are critical parts of their temples. They go for bot lane bans. Like, it's very strange.
That makes me wonder if when they did those scrims, IG, I'm not going to say it was like trolling, but kind of like didn't always play their strongest stuff, because like this draft doesn't really sound like it. Okay, Theorycraft, what do you think G2 thought they were going to get out of some of these drafts? Like a basic concept of what they thought was going to work, because obviously sounds like the drafts all went badly by the end, but they must have come in with like a pretty strong notion. Like, it's hard to believe that they wouldn't even give themselves the chance.
I really don't know. Like, I really honestly can't say.
I thought it was really obvious. Jungle pressure.
Well, okay,
like,
go for it. Jungle pressure with last pick Gragas, yes.
Well, not with last pick, not the Gragas one, but the first game where they have Jhin, they're thinking Jin's probably the best jungler. I do agree with Jhin being the best jungler right now, and people putting priority on it. Like, let's open the game with Jhin and the solo laners. I think that was their game plan.
In case anyone doesn't know, Loco is saying Zin, but he just says it in that Korean way. He means Zin, not Jin, the fucking AD.
Yeah, Jin's out.
The problem is what Loco says is an alternative reality from where I live, because where I live, what they actually did was they blinded Aatrox when Alistar Sivir into Braum Lucian and then saved Xin Zhao for after second ban phase. They didn't prioritize Xin.
And that, I didn't go back and check the exact drafting pattern or the drafting order, but that's the only thing strong I see about G2's draft, like that they have Xin Zhao.
Yeah, but they didn't prioritize it. They lucked into it. They're so lucky.
Then they should have picked it early. Like, that's so stupid.
Yes,
so here's the thing, Loco.
Cloud9 and Fnatic did next series. They were immediately going Xin Braum, Xin Alistar, whatever, first 2 picks, and then blind blind bot lane and go for a counter pick.
This is why, Loco, that if having a British accent makes all the difference, right? Because LS would have just said like, no, Loco, you're wrong there. Like, it's not the way you go. But because he was just like, Loco, my friend, you and I exist in different realities, and in my reality, the metrics by which I judge the game. It sounded so much better though. It's the same comment basically, but it sounded a lot classier.
It's just being rude or not being rude. Anyways, why Jin Zhao's so strong right now is he's the one champion where even you can force a flash in a gank and you still have a shot for a kill. So you flash E onto someone and then they flash out, right? And they're already slowed from your E, and then you can aim your W, and if you hit your W on them after they flash, you'll get that kill 90% of the time. So you can flash E to gap close and still get the kill even if they flash. So the champion's so fucking crazy good.
I also think he's... sorry, no, go on, finish your thought.
And with like these early game supports like roaming with you, like Rakan, Alistar, or Braum, if you ever meet someone as like a Xin Zhao plus the Alistar or Xin Zhao plus Rakan, and they get on you, you just instantly die. It's just he's so crazy good early game.
So so that's the big thing for me about Xin Zhao, is the amount of fidelity you have in level 2, and given that you want to be playing really hard around solo lanes, that's going to obviously be really beneficial. But the only team that I see actually prioritizing this, yes, G2 did get the Xin Zhao in one game, but that was not because of prioritization, that was out of luck. The team that I do see prioritizing early pick junglers is still IG. On blue side, they go for the Talia, and Ning was honestly an incredibly underrated aspect of why IG were doing so well this series. There's no option in the game if you're playing Gragas into Talia early, and the Talia has winning lanes, and Ning was hard smurfing the first 10 minutes of all of these games with these types of favorable jungle matchups. The first game it was Jarvan into Xin Zhao, if you want to know, but Ning was still playing really wild, to be honest. Like,
no, the Jarvan Xin Zhao, I watched. I remember watching first game in detail. He avoided Xin Zhao really well, and he was able to just farm up in the early levels. Like in early levels, I felt like Zankos could have forced things more, and the fact that he didn't force things and they were able to hit level 5, level 6 without anything happening means like as a Jarvan, you're still fucking happy because like early game you're like, please, Mr. Xin Zhao, don't find me. Please let me just hit level 6. Please don't gank my laners. And he actually got his wish. I thought it was more bad from Zankos than it was good from Ning.
Well, this does somewhat go back to the draft. The only lane here that is potentially gankable for G2 is bot lane, with Alistar Sivir versus Braum Lucian. That's the only setup he has, because the Aatrox is against the Jace, the Swain is against an Akali. You don't really have any sort of like reliable level 2 gank here. You really don't outside of bot lane.
Even if you don't get the kill, I think like going in and burning flashes early and getting a huge chunk for laners is incredibly valuable. It's something you see Broxah do a lot. Like I noticed like Broxah.
No, I agree there.
Yeah, on his Rek'Sai game, he tunneled in, he flashed. Fucking Jensen didn't even have to flash out, and the only thing he did was burn his flash to get a lot of chunk on Jensen, and he took it, and it's worth it if you trust your mid laner to snowball, and if you trust your mid laner that them having priority means they will always walk first for objectives. So I do think even if there aren't like lanes with like giant bright neon lights that says gank me, like it's still worth to gank a lot of the time in this meta. And
sure, so even though he doesn't have that much setup level 2, it does seem to me that if the wave is played properly, that he should still have options, at least top lane here. I still think mid lane, I'd actually think he's lucky if he burns a flash here if Jace is playing human. But full disclaimer, I was brought onto this show like super last minute, so looking at this draft, I would assume IG would have to do something level 1. Like I honestly can't remember that game incredibly well right now. But if IG don't do something level 1, then there should be something for Xin Zhao to do top side. But honestly, after that, I really don't see his options, especially post 6. It gets giga difficult for him across the board here, whereas the game seems super favorable for IG.
Okay, so we did the like whole angle of the solo laners then, but wasn't that also an area where G2 probably were a little bit misguided? It's like, okay, I never bought the angle that like Jankos chalked all the semis he's played in his life away, but he definitely had a few that were questionable, or he just wasn't the sick player he would be in a random LCS game. In this particular series, shouldn't they have put more emphasis on putting him in a great position, since in theory, if the two solo lanes on both teams are really good, jungler's going to have a massive impact on the game?
First rotation red side should be Xin Zhao plus X. Probably Braum, to be honest. I think Braum is severely undervalued by most teams, but if I'm G2, I pick Tom there. And after that, you either go for your second solo laner blind, or if enemy has revealed a mid lane or top lane, you can immediately go for a counter pick there, and then do what Fnatic did and go into one of Sivir or Lucian after the second ban phase. I think that's how you should do it every time, and I think G2 should have done that, and Jankos would have a favorable jungle matchup every game, instead of this 5th pick Ragas shit that I'm seeing on my screen that I'd still baffles my mind to this day. Like they give over Talia and then still insist on saving. But that's in large part due to their bot lane deficiency, but they don't necessarily have to be going for the early rotations that they are going for. It's so strange to me.
Isn't that kind of weird though? Because the one thing that people obviously praised them about in the quarterfinal against RNG is like everyone thought that bot lane was going to get absolutely fucking smashed, and if anything, they did a very like admirable job sort of absorbing pressure so that the solo lanes could win. So why put so much emphasis on that? I mean, I guess maybe this again goes back to the scrims. Maybe in scrims they were getting their head smashed in by Jackie Love. I don't know.
Wait, in quarters, what was happening was RNG was like play around Uzi. I don't know what the fuck happened, but RNG were like, we need to play around Uzi. And they were like, they played around Uzi, so they spent so much resource bot side where all G2 had to do was, Wadid, Yarnan, just breathe. All you guys need to do is breathe. Like, get CS, like maybe 1 CS per wave. That's all you guys need to do. They're wasting so much resource bottom, and for some reason picking like both double tank solo laners that our solo lanes will fucking carry and smash this game. And that's what happened. Like, and IG wasn't as dumb as RNG, and they didn't invest like their entire life saving into bot lane. So I thought it was really simple.
It is that simple. I do think a big thing is that, especially in the 5th game, what you actually ended up seeing happen was G2 realized these guys are just shoving Let Me on Shen or whatever. Wander is always going to have a favorable matchup, and Perks is smurfing all over this kid. And Jankos was actually starting to just path towards bot side. 5th game, he was pathing towards bot side and just matching RNG every single game. Well, not every game. On the 5th game, on every single gank, he was matching RNG bot side. And his solo laners were just winning on their own. It wasn't necessarily that Jankos was hard playing around his solo laners there. There they just realized that they didn't even have to because RNG were giving that up in draft. The opposite has occurred here, because what I'm seeing now, and I remember my rants this day now, G2 opened with 2 bot lane bans, and then they have to pick the Aatrox because they've left so many actually strong solo lanes power picks up. They've banned Xayah Kai'Sa in first ban phase versus IG. Actually, I remember all my tweets on the day now. This actually boggles my mind. And these bot lane bans were not the hill to die on. But Xayah is perma ban in early in the first ban phase, the entire set by G2. All IG have to do is ban Victor, and now they choose to ban Akali Urgot, but the Aatrox is still up, so now they figure we have to pick this away. We don't have any other choice, because if they do this, they can flex it all the way through the draft, and they've pigeonholed themselves with this absurd notion that Jackie Love on Kai'Sa is going to be the thing that will win IG the game, when I don't think anybody should go into this series, or even this meta, thinking that the bot lane matchup is what's going to decide it. It's a really strange hill to die on for me.
I actually have a super cool, super fun question for you. So
maybe what happened is after the series, the G2 coach goes, oh fuck, I've got my notes wrong. This was wait a minute, I had the wrong one for the wrong series. Oh, what have I? But it worked that one time. So there's the joke, right? Obviously, there he was like, I thought this was RNG. Oh bloody hell! You said it was the best Chinese team. Oh fucking hell!
So,
easy mistake to make.
well, Asians look all the same, right?
Exactly.
So how can you tell the difference?
Exactly. He was like, we don't have Chinese team. Yeah.
We don't have nameplates in real life, so it's really hard to tell the difference. Anyway,
Jackie Chan, what were you saying?
Okay.
Oh my god.
That's staying in. Keep going. Come on.
Hello there,
Come on, Loco. Hello, Loco.
Anyways, Veteren, because we're both coaches, right? So we know what goes inside of teams. Why do you think, like, us looking back, it's like, how could G2 be so fucking stupid? It was so fucking obvious. They just had to do X, Y, and Z. They just had to take Xin Zhao. Why are they prioritizing bans? Why do you think it happens to pro teams with like professional coaches that are getting paid a lot of money and their only job is to research teams and have the best strategy for them? Why do you think like these kind of blunders happen?
Generally speaking, it always comes down to the matchups that your players give you are incorrect in some manner, because you will very often have players, and I would... Okay, so full disclaimer, Wonder, I have absolutely no idea if you said this or not, but looking from here, the conversation that I imagine would have had to happen would have been like, we can't do the 2 bot lane bans that our bot lane is asking for and deny them flexes like Aatrox, and then Wonder goes, it's fine, I can either pick this into Aatrox, or I can pick Aatrox and I'll win any lane. It's fine. Yes. Mm-hmm. One of these two happened. One of these two. This conversation is like the most ideal thing that I could see happening to get this kind of scenario. I obviously don't know if that happened, but generally speaking, it comes to a player being insistent about certain kinds of matchups, and you do at some point have to trust their comfort in those matchups. I always try to get around this by making sure that they give me 3 particular matchups into certain champions, and they give me these 3 options, and I will pick the option out of all of these.
Okay.
And that's the only way that I can get around it. Because this is the problem that at least I've seen on multiple teams occur when other people have been the coach as well, and also the conversations that I've had with players where it's like, okay, we go down this road, it's going to go pretty bad in draft.
Okay, I think that is definitely one aspect that could have happened. Another thing I think could see happening is G2 were scrimming, maybe not IG, but
Go a bit closer to your mic, Loco.
G2 were screaming, obviously not IG. They were screaming other teams, and they could not beat other teams playing Xayah and Kai'Sa, and like they could not match them mid game or late game.
Okay.
And they're there's no way we can win versus Jackie Love, Xayah, or Kai'Sa. This guy's one of the best ADCs left in the tournament. We must ban these champions. So like you take scrim results, and even when all the stats and all like the meta analysis might say otherwise, like it's really hard to ignore scrim results and like as a team be like, these scrims don't matter. Like on stage, we'll be fine. And I think teams that are able to do that can actually like draft a lot better on stage. But it's very, very hard for teams to just completely ignore scrim results. Obviously, me and Veteren weren't like with G2, so we don't know what happened. But these are
just theory crafting.
Yeah, some ideas, because like fans will like ask me like, why did you do this stupid shit, or like why did G2 do this? And these are like legitimate things that happen. Why sometimes smart people make dumb decisions.
Put it this way: the best way to say it would be this. I've no doubt that at certain points in the especially early on, that they did have a plan and that they thought this legitimately was the best way to win. It's just first of all, they, as Veteren says, they sort of painted themselves into a corner with some of their decisions, and then had to make tough choices they wouldn't maybe want to, and then even more importantly, in the game didn't do any of the things they wanted anyway, so it didn't matter at that point.
I definitely have to say that there's a lot of merit to what Loco says, because if, as I have heard, they were actually scrimming IG for a lot of the time, their bans versus RNG, their initial bans versus RNG, they evolved over the time, except for the Xayah one, which is also their persistent ban against IG, was Xayah, Alistair, Fresh. So you could interpret that from just purely from scrimming IG, their bot lane was getting smashed the whole time, and they identified this as the thing that they need to fix. Essentially. So there's a lot of credence to that. Maybe coming into this series, they did figure IG are going to play really hard around their bottom lane because they've always done that to us. So we need to make sure they're not on the picks that are either going to be really good for that style or that will outscale us. And they tunnel visioned on that. I could definitely.
By the
see
way,
that happening.
I just want to take a moment here to call someone out, and his name is Hjarnan. He's a Swedish player. He plays for G2. Now, everyone coming into this Worlds, because your boy Niels, now known as Ven on TSM, defended Hjarnan and was like, why is everyone making these narratives that he is shit? I think he's a good player. Which is like, first of all, I think that's a bit of a straw man, mate. Like, some people memed on him and said he was shit. I don't know if people who were analysts actually thought this guy was like the worst ADC in Europe. No. I think most people thought he was average, but for the G2's level, probably isn't good enough to win the championship in EU, which is where most people then probably hyperbole memed on him that, you know, he's not as good as the others. But after the quarterfinals, people were all over this guy's ass, like, oh, fucking amazing play, wow, who's Yao supposed to kick his head in? So, presumably, Hjarnan and G2 believe it themselves that he's a good player and that he is like a top professional, etc. These drafts and how you actually played in the game suggest that you do not believe he is actually a top AD carry. You do not believe he could have beaten the other team without all this protection, without basically having your top laner, who was one of your main win conditions, cripple himself before he even went into the fight. And he had to do all this stuff. And even then it didn't do anything. What did Hjarnan do with all these bans? Fuck all. So it's like, you've just doesn't matter what words you tell me now, your actions have proved you never believed any of those words. When you were in a fucking foxhole, you all turned to each other and you were like, oh no, I'm literally the president of the Atheists Club, but God, please help me, I need to get that. It's like, fuck off, you actually are a joke. Anyway, I think you're still alright as a player, but you're just some Swedish guy who's average in the EU LCS, and this was the semi-final of Worlds, and you'll never be back there again, so don't worry about it. You had your one little chance. Back you go to the Pleb Peon League. I hope you enjoyed it and that you're playing on Unicorns of Love next season. Right, back to the actual analysis part of the show.
Well, wait. One thing I do want to say is
you just predicted unicorns to make franchising. By the way, that's
okay. That part, yes, that's the most unrealistic part of what I just said.
Or you just predicted Hjarnan to go into German National League and play on the Unicorns of Love.
He'll be a fucking monster over there, mate. He'll be drawing bands over there. So
Yeah, Heimerdinger every game. Teams know that.
One thing I want to say, hey G2 coach, I know you're not dumb. I know you have limitations. I know you have to draft around your player strength. I know how strong IG was. As a coach, I got shot on all the time for doing drafts where I had to work with what I was given, and people were like, why did you not just do this? Why were you forced to ban these champions? And no one ever spoke up for me. I got you, dude. I don't even know your name. I'm going to be making content next year, and I'm going to be supporting coaches. Like, I'll talk about what actually fucking goes on, because it's like so fucking infuriating to be a coach sometimes and just sit there and listen to like fucking Reddit like just shit on you for drafts and stuff, and they don't have any of the context, and no one ever says anything about like context for coaches. And they're like, why doesn't Reaper just do this? Why doesn't Parth just draft this? Like, hello, like we have different tools. Like, it's not the exact same from the other team, and we have to draft with what our players gives us. Like, it's just so fucking stupid sometimes. And I wanted to defend a fellow coach.
His name is Grabs. He's a hell of a drinker, and he's been a good friend of mine for a few years. And I definitely don't put like inconsistencies in draft all down to him. I don't quite know the conditions that he was working with there. The criticism of the draft still stand though.
There's also Veteren as well.
That you should pick red side, by the way, because everyone now is waiting for you to pick blue side. So
yes.
Good stuff.
I will say this though, another thing to throw in as well is the reason why in the current climate of League of Legends it is a losing battle as a coach to not play to what your players say. Here's the problem, right? In this scenario, a lot of our theory crafting was like the player probably asked for this, the player probably needed this, and the coach then has to work around that, which no one in Reddit's thinking of. They're thinking of like the ILS style ideal global meta where you're just picking this champion beats this champion beats this. Like in that scenario, right? You can't lose as the coach if you pick what your players want and they lose the game. At that scenario, they're not going to say shit. If you tell your players, no, you're definitely playing this, and then they lose the game, I'm going to go ahead and tell you a secret about players. They'll find a way to accidentally mention that in an interview, and then you will get flamed. And people will go the other way. Then they'll be like, why were you letting this through when you know he can't play? It's like, who do you think has more fans? You, the coach, or the fucking shithead player who's just lost you the whole game? I think we all know who it is, except in that particular case of Yarnum, where apparently he doesn't have any fans. But he has a girl who really likes him in the game, so that's worth more than 1,000 virgin fucking plebs on Reddit in many ways. So anyway, we need to move to the other semi-final now, or we'll spend forever. And the other one, I think, is the most fun one. It was the most delicious one. It was basically all the chickens coming home to roost for all that good NA shit talking. Veteren, what happened in this C9 versus Fnatic semi-final?
Europe finally played North America in a best of 5 on the world stage, and it went exactly as everybody expected it to go. 5 better players, better understanding of the game, I believe was my exact quote on Narrative Wake, and we witnessed 5 better players and a better understanding of the game from Fnatic. And it was a straight-up 3-0 smash, no chance whatsoever, no matter what.
Well, no, Veteren, I did enjoy that part. So. There was that part towards the end of, like, I think it was Game 3, where Fnatic was like that cat that's playing with the mouse, and it's sort of like, I'm going to give you a chance, you're going to get away. And they're like, we might be able to make it. And then they just grab it again and then kill it. So it's like, they did a few weird team fights towards the end where they were like, just give him a chance. Nah, he still lost anyway. Well, whatever. You can't say I didn't give you a sporting chance at the end there, boys.
This is also a really strange series, by the way, where Cloud9 were literally like one last pick off of having god tier drafts like every game, and they always they hovered Rise in the last game, for example, and they insta switched back to the Echo and tripled down on this shit. It was so infuriating to me, to be honest, because they were actually
again,
the proper draft order.
To be fair, remember players probably had input. Like Jensen was like, listen, I just really want to lose another big game in my career on Echo, so can I get that? Like, it's just tradition for me at this point. Yeah.
Echo went top. Jensen was only playing Lissandra the whole time. He's also doing Lissandra into LeBlanc, which is a playable matchup for LeBlanc, and then it's basically Lissandra plus jungle ganks plus smoke treads will win.
Wait. Well, let's talk about game 1 a little, the Lissandra matchup. I actually think
LeBlanc
this one...
Lissandra.
Yeah, LeBlanc Lissandra. I actually think this one's hella favorable for C9. You have Lissandra and Xin Zhao. Xin Zhao's the stronger level 2 jungler, and he got to steal Lee Sin's red. But for some reason,
holy god,
Jensen got gank level 2 and died to a Lee Sin with just blue buff. I was like, what the fuck? fuck! I was so fucking upset because I thought the draft where if C9 plays to their strength, which is playing around mid lane, like they have a potential to win, but they threw away it in such an easy way. And also, here's the thing, guy. When LeBlanc takes cleanse, you force 2v2s at level 6 with Lissandra, and you ult the Lee Sin, and you kill the Lee Sin, and cleanse is fucking worthless. But we didn't even get to that part. Like, they were fighting so much, and they played around top lane so much. And even when Svenskeren ganked top, remember what we talked about? When Xin Zhao ganks a lane with flash, you flash E on someone, and you can W them after they flash. He used W on double golems before he ganked, and he went in before his W was up. So he flashed E'd on Whippo, and that's why he did that turret dive. Because normally you're able to kill the Victor. Because after you flash E'd and the Victor flashes, you can poke him with your W and you're able to kill the Victor. Because he had his W down, he wasn't able to kill the Victor. It was just so many little mistakes. Like, I know in hindsight, people are like, whoa, C9 had, or okay, I know all these EU people, you guys were gonna fucking root for Fnatic no matter what.
Well, why don't you tell us the odds, and then we'll see what GG Esports root.
Well, I will like to throw out there, by the way.
Keep going.
Little mistakes is not how I'd characterize this. The reason why there was a level 2 gank mid lane from Fnatic is because Svenskeren was in top Tribush sitting and camping Echo for some absurd reason. Probably if you're not here, my lane's going to get shoved in and I'm going to lose all lane control really soon.
Okay,
or some crap communication like that. But either way, he should absolutely be playing to mid level 2. Like their entire like setup from
why pick Lissandra and not play to Lissandra?
Yes, it makes sense. I do think strictly 1v1. This
we're getting an insight into what Loco used to be like backstage at the NALCS now, aren't we?
I actually do think strictly 1v1. LeBlanc has a lot of pre-6 or pre-Merc threads. I think potential versus Lissandra. It was Aftershock Lissandra every game if I recall correctly, and that's like a 35-second cooldown, so you can get 2 W trades in once you proc it first time on LeBlanc, and then post 6 if once Lissandra gets Merc threads, those trades aren't going to matter whatsoever.
Also,
so post 6 is going to become about avoiding Q trades and getting those 2W windows. But post 6 with Merc's threads on Lissandra, if you escort her just to this point, this is the only point you have to escort her to, it is free as fuck if you play 2v2 mid.
Lee doesn't even have red buff! You stole red buff from Lee level 1! You picked Braum and you stole red buff! He doesn't even fucking have red buff! Why aren't you playing to mid lane? And also, another thing about Lissandra and LeBlanc matchup, it got a lot better for Lissandra after Lissandra started taking Aftershock. Did you know Aftershock at early level gives you fucking 70 MR and 70 armor? You become a fucking god. Like when LeBlanc comes in, use W, get Aftershock bonus, that fucking MR is fucking ridiculous. 70 MR at like early levels is like, it was just infuriating watching this series. It wasn't infuriating because NA lost. It was infuriating because C9 had the parts to put up a good fight, and they just fucking were like, we're not going to put up a good fight. Like, we're going to draft Lissandra and Xin Zhao and play the top side and camp Echo Brushes and gank without having your W up. It's just like, what the fuck? Oh my fucking god.
Yeah, that was very loud. I really felt your rage.
Can we get the stats? What was the prediction on the GG Esports odds, by the way?
Did anybody, including Loco, actually predict Cloud9 to win this series?
Okay, my brain prediction was 3-1 Fnatic because I couldn't think of ways that C9 would do better than Fnatic. I really wanted to predict C9, so I ended up going 3-2 C9, and my reasoning was C9 did better than they did in play-in than groups. And then from groups to round of 8 to quarterfinals, they did better than they did in round of 8 or in groups. So they constantly leveled up and they shown better performance than they had before. So my reasoning was that they would show a better performance that they did than in the quarterfinals.
Basically,
so maybe they would win.
Basically, Veteren, what Loco did was like every little noob investor. Like, he heard about Bitcoin right at the end, and he was like, oh, great, I'll buy it now. It might go to 50K. And then instead, what he experienced was a term in mathematics called regression to the mean, which is when something unusual happens, eventually it's going to go back to what it was. Like, so he's the guy who lost all his money at like 15K on Bitcoin, and it went down to like 3K or whatever. So that's the metaphor for what Loco did in that.
You should do what I do, Loco. Because what I do is I decrease the value of prediction across the board by like, okay, so say I came into this series and Cloud9 actually looked insane. And I said, Cloud9 are 5 better players and have a better understanding of the game. I would then say, but Fnatic will win because they're European. And I do this no matter what. Like I didn't know anything. Like I did not know enough about IG outside of their performances at this tournament to predict anything. So I said, but G2 will win because they're European, and it will be glorious when they win. Just do this every time, and then whenever you get random comments of being like, "But you were wrong on prediction," just be like, "Well, you're just retarded. You clearly didn't. Haven't paid attention to me for the last 4 years at this point. Just stick to your prediction. Fuck this brain shit, heart shit. Just if you're an NA fan, all in on NA. If you're a Korea fan, vote for the IG because they have the most Koreans, stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Just
the
all in on it.
odds
Devalue.
and also, Thorin, to talk about your like Bitcoin stuff, I did put $10,000 in Ethereum, and it's worth about like $2,000 now.
He actually did it. I thought it was just a metaphor, and you actually did do it.
Holy God!
Damn,
My God.
I put $10,000 in
Okay.
Ethereum when it was about like 1K per Ethereum, and then it went up to 14,000, and I was like, holy fuck! I made $4,000 doing nothing. This is fucking genius.
Except you didn't because you didn't sell it, so you didn't make any of that money. What you did is just waited a while to lose 8K.
And also, this was when I was on Golden. This was when I was on Golden Guardians, and what is it? We used to talk about crypto a lot with me,
Yes.
Kirk Lakeups, Joe Lakeups, the son, and then he told me not to invest into crypto, but if I was gonna invest into crypto, do it to Ethereum. So
Yes.
I didn't take his advice, and I invested into crypto anyways, but.
Well,
sort
to
of
be
took it-
fair, I mean, he didn't have the greatest track record because he invested in the Golden Guardians. So
Wow.
I can see why you didn't trust him there, and you were like, well, I think I'm going to go my own route on business, mate. I mean, clearly you don't care about money you're ever making any, so...
Wow. Kirk, I love you. I'll defend you, but whatever.
We
Anyway.
want
exactly.
the stats. We want
Yes,
the stats.
what were the odds? Come on.
If C9 won, it was 2.25. So if you put in 100 coins, you would get 225 back if C9 won the best of 5. I don't know if Fnatic won because it's only showing me
Quick
the
math.
odds for if C9 won.
Okay. Based on that, I'm going to guess Fanatics was like 1.1 or something, so I'm guessing they were pretty heavy favourites.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Fnatic was favorite too. It was so exciting to root for C9 as an NA fan, and that's what I don't get. Like
Right up until the game started, at least.
this is what I
Yeah,
don't
I know what you
about-
mean. In the fucking countdown on the stream, you were fucking hyped as shit. You were like, "Oh, anything could happen. This could be a minute." And then as soon, like 5 minutes into all the games, you were like, "Maybe next game, maybe next one."
But fans, don't feel bad about rooting and cheering for your region. If it was
exactly.
just about like cheering for favorites, then we would
Yes.
just cheer for Korea, China all the time. Then
Yes.
it'd be boring, and you don't even fucking care when Korea wins. You don't care when China wins.
Exactly.
You only care when your team does well. It's completely fine to cheer for a team, and it's okay to be wrong. Like the fact that you cheered means
Exactly.
a lot. Like honestly, to the teams and the players that play on the team, it means so much. But don't bet your money or
No.
coins or Ethereum on unreasonable odds.
No, just follow the stats on GG Sports, and
Follow-
maybe they will be a better guide. Because
follow
so
the
far they
stats.
predicted the semis correctly. So far,
Yeah.
they know
Yeah.
better than your heart.
Yeah.
Okay, in keeping with the theme of we're perma talking about draft for some reason, what is your opinion on Malzahar and Galio versus LeBlanc in the current meta?
Malzahar and Galio versus LeBlanc. So Malzahar, it's okay-ish, but the problem that arises is like when level 2 or level 3 skirmishes happen before you hit level 6, like what are you
Yeah.
doing there? Like you're making voidlings and like auto attack, like it's it's kind of like iffy, like. So I don't think Malzahar is good in that sense. I think Galio is fine. I actually do like Lissandra a lot. I think you shouldn't give the very best LeBlanc players LeBlanc in general, but if you're gonna play something, I do think Lissandra is better than Malzahar and Galio.
What about Kassadin if you don't play like Kuro?
No. Kassadin is
No?
only good against LeBlanc after like a certain point, like level 16 or 2.
Yeah. I mean, you will lose pressure early. I'll agree with that.
And when's the game decided nowadays? It's decided early and mid game. So yes, Kassadin will win later on, but it doesn't matter. Like before you get to that point, the game will already be over.
What I would have
Before he even got to level 16.
What I would have liked to see is kind of some pick in this vein, and then I legitimately thought we were finally going to see Lissandra top into Victor.
Yeah.
They could have last rotated something else into LeBlanc, given that they had the better jungle matchup, basically. Well, the first game, it's Xin Zhao straight up. So given that they were heavy prioritizing jungle properly, I was expecting that we would see the Lissandra be flexed versus the Victor, and that we would see something else go versus LeBlanc, because there are actually a decent amount of picks that I think are viable into LeBlanc. But then the question is, like, obviously with picks like Kassadin, there's the loss of pressure. I wouldn't necessarily pick Malzahar into a Lee Sin. Galio is still up, though, and I think he has enough setup in a composition with Braum, Tristana, Lissandra to actually make it work. Lissandra dives the backline press, so I don't care if they all spent 1,300 on QSS. That's the setup. You're diving on that, for sure.
I mean,
and then I think that would be a really good way to draft.
Well, I think even this draft, like, isn't that problematic? Lissandra Zin's out, mid 2v2 pressure, Braum, what is it, early game? The only thing I really didn't like was Tristana. Like, they invested early into getting a good bottom lane draft, and they ended up getting shoved in for the entirety of the game. So that part I didn't like. But Xin Zhao, Lissandra, Braum, they had the right idea for the draft. Their execution was just terrible.
I mean, no, I actually don't like Echo Top. I don't like Echo Top into Victor. I really don't like it, to be honest. Because I think that's what you want to do when you pick these AP matchups into Victor, is that you actually deny him being able to effectively rush Iceborne. And if this guy isn't able to effectively rush a Sheen item early game, then it's really FF when you're going Klepto Victor, because Victor becomes a really all-or-nothing champion. And you will just collapse on him if he is forced to go a full AP build, which is what C9 were doing when they flexed the Victor to bot lane, because then you can go AP Victor because you will have a support that's able to defend you and prevent these kind of collapses from happening. And if Echo, even though Echo is AP, given that he is melee, I'm still comfortable going Klepto Iceborne rush build into Echo. So I don't actually think Echo denies anything that actually makes Victor strong, and he's still going to suffer from a loss of pressure early game, which Bippo is very easily able to translate into control on that side of the map. So even if you were to get pressure post 6 with the Lissandra matchup, I don't necessarily think your solo lanes are going to do that well, short of them playing like super heavily around mid. But as Loco mentioned, they were losing pressure bot side. So I don't think this Echo pick that they picked 2 games. They picked 2 out of the 3 games. They went Echo into Victor. I actually don't think this was a good hill to die on for them. I don't think it denies anything that makes top lane Victor good right now, but Lissandra absolutely does. You cannot go Iceborne Rush, Kleptomancy, Victor into Lissandra. You have to go your area and you have to go your AP build, and then you are playing a Victor that is incredibly vulnerable to being collapsed on versus a Lissandra comp. And you will die. Like, especially if they went Lissandra Galio, this Victor suddenly becomes really useless and is not able to do anything that he wants to do. This Victor wants extended fights with his Iceborne Rush, and he wants to be dealing ridiculous levels of damage and peel for the rest of his team doing this, and he wants to be a god on side lane, and he can't do any of this stuff versus a Lissandra Galio comp. That's not going to happen.
I will say it's been a while we actually talked about like the game on this show. We usually talk about narratives a lot, but it's been a while where we talked about the game. And speaking of draft, I think like the Victor, Lissandra being a better pick into Victor, I agree with, and Echo being kind of iffy, like I still agree with. But I think that was like problem number 5 or problem number 6 from C9's draft. One thing I really want to bring up: Irelia, Akali ban, both sides, all 3 games.
Red side, I can understand it. Blue side, I can understand it if you're setting up for your first pick Victor, yeah. I actually think Irelia's good into Victor. I think Irelia, Renekton are good, and it turns out Shen actually has good windows if he's rushing Spirit Visage, but I wouldn't consider Renekton bannable. I would definitely consider Irelia bannable if I'm going for the first pick Victor. I consider Kali bannable anyway, and I would also want to deny rotation of LeBlanc from Fnatic.
Both sides? Why? Why is C9 put in a situation where they have to ban at both sides? Like, your draft is so screwed if you're banning 2 champions both sides.
Because they didn't want to ban the Victor.
Here's the
they
question
could ban
for you
the Victor
then.
on blue side.
Here's something that ties into that. Is when we were speculating on Narrative Wake, like what would happen in this matchup, a number of the people on the show thought actually Fnatic will just play Soaz in the series, and they'll just try and be like, right, absorb any pressure top from LICORICE and then forget about that, and then that takes out one of the win conditions of Cloud9. But actually, if you look at the fact that they just played Whip all the games and seemingly what they drafted for him, it seemed like they had a very different conception of C9. They didn't really seem to particularly respect the top lane. And all the NA fans were massively bigging up LICORICE in this one. Was there a mistake on Cloud9 on thinking that would be their strength?
I do think that the assessment that you could just play so as having absorb pressure top and then play skirmish spot, which is what Cloud9 were doing versus Afrika, and win given that you have better players, is a viable way to play against Cloud9. But I do think that it would still be a suboptimal way to play the meta. I don't see why Fnatic would do that. I do, however, I think you remember, think that just because they pick SOAS doesn't mean that they can't play carries top. So I was never necessarily...
Would also have been a good trick to pull, right? To put him in and then make them think that that's what you're doing and then flex something to the top lane.
Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see SOAS putting in the time to learn Victor, but you check their solo queue profiles and you see who's putting in all the fucking hours to learn Victor, and then it's very telegraphed that you want to do that with...
Was LICORICE overrated, though, in this series?
I don't think LICORICE got a good matchup in two of the games. The third game, he didn't get a good matchup in any of the games. So if I want to be consistent here, then
like you did for Wonder,
I can't say that Wonder was not set up to succeed with his draft, and then say that LICORICE is just bad or anything of this manner, because he definitely wasn't set up to succeed here. He played Aatrox into Jason the second game. Like, it's so... Wow, because they flexed the Victor bot, I forgot.
By the way, for anyone who's thinking right now, oh, fucking Thorin, I hate him. See the way he asks those loaded questions trying to get Veteren to trash talk? Yeah! Have you not figured out the formula yet, cocksucker? This isn't like objective journalism here. I'm the host. I'm here to make an interesting conversation. If I could ask him if your mother was ugly, I'd ask him. I hope he'd fucking tell her that she looked like a sack of potatoes that had fallen down a fucking pile of mud. No,
she's not, anyway. By the way. My standards aren't that low, and she was really good.
So, okay, there we go.
Thorin's ideal show is, after the show, the guest DMs us, and he's like, could you remove this part of the show? I think I spoke out.
And then I'm like, who dis? New Reddit account, whatever, like delete, and then I block them, and then I just release the show anyway. That's actually the formula. You've revealed the formula after all, Loco. That's why some people only come on the show once.
Well, I actually have a lot of criticism for LICORICE.
Come on.
Game 3, holy fuck. I'm not sure if you guys remember, there was a point where C9 caught out Victor. Game 3 in bot lane, and Inferno Drake was about to spawn. This was a point in the game where C9 was up about 2k gold. They already had one Inferno, and LICORICE had no teleport, no ultimate. And he decides to push one more wave after they killed Victor.
Oh, I remember this actually. Yeah.
Oh my god, it was so fucking bad! If he backed and spent his gold and C9 set up for the dragon, they would have either gotten a favorable fight where they were up gold or taken second Inferno. They would be, like, they would have two Infernos, up 2k gold. Now Echo can start fucking split pushing on the Victor. Like, things looked so good for C9. But LICORICE stayed to push another wave with dragon spawning. Bwipo teleported behind them, and they killed LICORICE, and they killed dragon, and then they picked off two more people, and they went and got Baron. Like, game was like in C9's hands if LICORICE pressed B and recalled after that kill on Bwipo, and he fucking didn't. I have no idea why he fucking didn't. You have Inferno coming up. It was so bad.
I actually don't think his mistake here is pushing the wave. Wait, yeah.
No,
so
he needs to back. He needs to back.
No, but he can just back in the bush and then he won't get interrupted for sure. Like, he's literally just backing in a bad place.
Why push a wave?
He's bouncing the wave. Bouncing that wave is fine. No, but he can bounce this wave and back, by the way. I'm watching it right now. He just gets interrupted by caps. But he doesn't need to be backing in that position.
Is it the same one where Bwipo's teleporting behind him?
Yeah, Bwipo teleports after he's interrupted, though. Like, he's literally interrupted super last second on his back. And then Bwipo coming in doesn't matter, by the way. He's definitely dead to the Aatrox no matter what.
Yeah, bouncing the wave doesn't matter that much. What matters so much more there, like, sure, wave bounce is like, what, 2 to 3 waves coming back to you earlier. What matters so much more is recalling first and being in position for dragon. As someone that just killed, like, that tempo there matters so much more. Like, say he's bouncing the wave, right? And he's getting the wave back to him. If he places it himself and the team in a position where they're going to be 4v5 until he gets back on the map, that's so bad, especially with Inferno up. Why not fucking close out the game with 2 Infernos? Getting 2 Infernos there with a solo laner ahead, it puts C9 back in the driver's seat.
Oh my god, he can easily do this back. He can easily bounce and do this back. Like, I understand what you are saying, but Fnatic also do have to fix this wave bot before they go to the Infernal anyway. Like, I do think bouncing the wave here is fine. I do think he can back, and I do think he can be on the map in time for the Infernal. There's no way that it's not like Fnatic have control of bot side at this point, by the way. Like, they don't have any vision of it whatsoever. Cloud9 can absolutely hold Drake until LICORICE is there. I absolutely think he can back. I think bouncing the wave is perfectly fine.
I don't have the game up, and I don't want this to be like a detail argument about should he bounce the wave, should he not bounce the wave. But I think that point was so critical regarding like C9.
I agree, him getting caught here is so critical, yes. I definitely agree with that.
It's so critical. Double Inferno. Fucking control of the game. Like, Echo finally being able to side lane versus Victor easily, and like it's just being like it was just such a good state for C9, and they let it all go. Oh my god, that was where I was like, fuck everything. Like, fuck everything. You guys can get 3-0'd for all I care. Like, that was the moment I stopped rooting, and I was like, okay, fuck it.
Okay, what happened here? Okay, this is a 3-man collapse. Jesus. Oh, okay. Okay, I think a bigger issue here is that Lissandra. Okay, yeah. All right. Lissandra and Zinzao are going into topside and getting Baron Vision at the same time as he's bouncing this wave bot. But this Baron Vision, they don't need to go for deep Baron Vision here if they're planning to play for Infernal on the next wave. So they could just be leaning towards bot side, and Caps is really disincentivized for interrupting anyway. But either way, he can get this back off regardless, so it's not even that big a point. But I think bot side and setting up for Infernal earlier, so I would not necessarily just put this on LICORICE either. I actually think this is just a general strategic issue. Obviously, if I review this further, I may even change my mind. I won't change my mind on the idea that Whippo can't bounce this wave and back though. But in terms of that specific rotation towards top and getting useless deep vision around an area that you're not looking to contest next, I'm not going to change my mind on that either. That is actually pointless.
Okay. Let me ask you this, Veteren.
That's actually pointless.
If they didn't make those mistakes and they got the second Inferno, like, how much of a shot would you give C9 to take that game?
No, they should. Yeah, they can definitely take this game if they get the double Infernal. I definitely think they can take this game. I think they could have taken this game from draft anyway. I don't actually necessarily think the game was like giga lost for C9 in any of these drafts. I do think it was suboptimal. But I don't necessarily think they lost the game from draft ever. I just think they're not good around the map. And this, when I look at it, is not necessarily an individual small mistakes example. I do think this is them being bad around the map again. This is like a split call.
But that's just like that one point, like, you can point to and be like, they could have won the game here, but they didn't. Like, it's like, oh, it was just so fucking disappointing watching that as an NA fan.
Sure, but you should also be used to it as well. Your teams are never that good around the map.
Wow.
I mean, it's true.
Okay,
But they are just watching them through all of this Baron Vision as well. If they lean towards bot side, there's no reason for Caps to go straight down to bot, because Echo Lissandra could just be rolling in a bush. They don't have any control bot side at all. So anyway, I do think this is a map issue.
Thorin, before I die, let's go to the next topic. Give us a new topic, please.
Now, for anyone who's wondering what just happened and why I would let Loco and LS and fucking Veteren literally talk for because it's like that when they have a conversation on fucking stream, talk for 20 minutes about one point in a game when they know we have limited time for the show, is because I wasn't doing that. And anyone who saw my part of the recording is going to know I repeatedly tried to cut them off, to give them subtle hints that like it wasn't. But it turns out, bizarrely, it's never happened on the show before. My mic actually just turned itself off and could not work again while Windows was on that version. I had to reboot. So if you're the editor, by the way, maybe for a fun reason, even put on the screen about 10 minutes before the end of that conversation, like Thorin doesn't know his mic is broke. Because the thing is, I've got the whole conversation. That part's going to be good, but put on the screen, Thorin doesn't know his mic isn't being picked up by the guests, right? Because the worst thing is, I was trying to early on, Loco, weave in a joke, which was that you don't understand that all the North American fans were bigging up LICORICE. They thought he was amazing, but Caps and Broxer are from Denmark, and in Scandinavia, they had LICORICE exactly the way they wanted him. Salty as fuck. Now that's a joke you won't get, unfortunately, Loco, because you haven't been to Scandinavia.
I went to Sweden recently to film a show, so I had Swedish licorice.
It's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, it tasted
It's really bad. It's just salty as fuck, basically, and it's very off-putting. So there we go. There we go. We got there in the end. I mean, what's mad is it was just 10 minutes of me getting progressively more angry. Like, at the end, I went mental when you couldn't hear me on. Like, I thought you were trolling or something there. So Anyway, let's wrap this part up. So we pretty much... what are the closing thoughts on this semi before we go and end this motherfucker?
5
NA
better
sad.
players, better understanding of the game done.
NA sad. NA sad. But not that bad. Just unlucky.
Still made top 4, still beat a Korean team in a best
Yeah.
of 5. That's all legit shit.
Congrats.
Yeah.
That guy had to rename
Yeah.
to H2K as many semis as NA.
Yes. It's
And
just
the other
that his...
guy, the other guy who had as OG more semis than NA has renamed to Yankos more semis than NA, by the way. So
Oh,
Damn.
by the way, So has more everything than NA, and he didn't even play. So it's a bad state of affairs for NA. You know,
There you
that's all
go.
I'm going to say. Also, I will just say
more
this.
semis.
By the way, I promised all you C9 fans this, so here you go, boys. Are you ready? Here's what you call karma. Here's what you call gathering up all the narratives, making a fist with them, and smashing your fucking head in like Riot does with their logo to everyone in their game. Is you guys said C9's amazing. C9 just beat a freak of freaks, a Korean team you guys all said would be good. Yeah, you know what? They did. And if that result counts, so does Fnatic absolutely pummeling the shit out of you, which means that in the best case scenario ever for NA, Europe was considerably better directly in the head-to-head and might yet win Worlds. So, you know, if that's the world you want to live in is your best case scenario, you're welcome to it, lads.
Well,
That's
let me
your
talk to
world.
NA fans before we close out the show. Like,
Okay, he's going to try and win him back over again.
No, when you're happy, I'm happy. I know a lot of our content can be like negative towards teams, but I think it's still fun. I still think it's analytical, and please don't be discouraged about rooting for NA teams in the future, because, dude, like, one day, like, I imagine like the scene being so negative and like no one really rooting for their teams and just like shitting on them and like just like praising like the favorites, and like what a fucking boring scene that would be. Like, everyone root for your own teams, like no matter how bad or no matter how good they are. Like, when I was a primarily Korean player and primarily more Korean and just rooted for Korean teams, that was fun. And even with NA, even when we do badly, even when I was working for TSM and I didn't think we'd have like the greatest shots, like I always put in full faith and I always supported. And I mean, cause I had to, it was cause it was my job, but also it's just more fun when you're invested into something, and don't let Thorin, the fucking like overaged, ugly ginger, take that away from you or anyone else.
I don't give a fuck. NA sucks. Root for the European players
Exactly.
in North America. The second colonization has begun and it's unstoppable. You need us, or you can't even make semis.
Exactly. You want to know something? The most
Like-
American thing you could do. This is the American dream.
What?
Is you leave a shitty region or country and you go to a better region or country and you try to immigrate there and make a better life for yourself. And it's going to be hard when you get there. All the EU fans are going to go, get the fuck out, Cloud9 fan. Who the fuck you? But if you put in your dues, if you integrate, if you assimilate into European culture, we will accept you as some sort of reverse fucked up Mayflower scenario, and one day you might be able to clean the toilets of us Europeans and make below minimum wage. There you go. That's the end of that segment, and all of Loco's things were for nothing. So, editor, cut it there. Leave it on the most negative note imaginable, in which I pervert the American dream into some sort of fucked up dystopian nightmare.